A lot of people think that they get power by controlling other people. And when they can't control other people, they lose that power. But what they don't realize is that true power is being able to control yourself. I feel like if I can embody calmness, embody consciousness, and embody control within myself, I'll have true power. And it's not power over anyone, it's power over myself, which is true power, because it means that you will get everything that you're supposed to get out of life.
I always thought that you can out-train a bad diet.
That is the biggest myth out there. Welcome to the Carnivore Entrepreneur Show, where health unlocks true wealth. It's time to reclaim your strength, ignite your energy, and live life with purpose. Master your body, sharpen your mind, and dominate your path. Live life how it's supposed to be lived, on your terms. Let's go. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Carnivore Entrepreneur Show. This is our next interview, and we have Matt with us. I won't take Matt's glory away from him, so I'll let Matt introduce himself. Over to you, Matt.
Good morning, Grant. Nice to see you. And hello, everyone on the Carnivore Entrepreneur Podcast. A real pleasure to be here on this sunny day. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. So, my name's Matt Dolman. I'm the director of the company, The Mindful Landlord. We are a property development business that specialises in homing vulnerable tenants.
Okay, cool. Nice. Thank you very much. Short and sweet. Love it. So you're going to get the same question that everyone gets on the show. So the Carnivore Entrepreneur Show is all about meat, muscles, mindset, and money. Matt, can you tell us what qualifies you to be a carnivore entrepreneur?
Brilliant, Grant. Yeah, so all of those really resonate with me. And I've got to start with meat. Years ago, I used to live in Dubai. And for there, I used to work for a food distribution company, actually. And we used to sell meat, which was Japanese Wagyu, American steak, grain-fed, and also Irish grass-fed, all very different products. So being surrounded by meat has always been something in my life. And it was great because after that, I then got the opportunity to go and work for a barbecue company. The barbecue company called Weber, the big American brand. Maybe you know it. Quite a few people have them in their gardens here in the UK.
Yeah.
So it was this amazing synergy to go from selling the meat to working with an incredible brand that cooks some of the most incredible meals. But when you think of a barbecue, and I've seen you doing it, Grant, on your socials, my mouth waters when I watch all of those videos that you're doing. People just think about grilling food just as in a steak or a piece of chicken, but working with this brand, they actually cook. You could cook like a 5-star meal on a barbecue. So you kind of really underestimate what your skills can be until you get taught and shown by some real professionals about the levels of skill that you can get from cooking on a barbecue. And also the benefit, I managed to get lots of complimentary free meat and got to work with a lot of the best cooks and chefs in the Middle East. It was a great experience.
Excellent. So what about mindset? What's your view on mindset?
Yeah.
Being the mindful landlord.
That's exactly, perfect. And so I started a very spiritual, mindful journey probably about 10 years ago when I was in Dubai. And what I've realized was that mindset is actually the key to freedom, actually, in a way.
Interesting.
And it allows you to, once you conquer mindset, it can open so many doors to, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's health. And I think that's great that you've brought all of these topics together on this podcast, because I think without mindset, it makes it very difficult to have the rest, because mindset is just a word. It's kind of a buzzword that people use, a bit like mindfulness, that if you don't strip it back and understand what it means, it can be underestimated. And where mindset comes into play for me is really the base of this is actually meditation.
Okay, cool.
I don't know, do you meditate?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much daily. I mean, I skip some days, but I use it as more of like a midday reset. I mean, I sort of do I guess breathing exercises in the morning, which is a form of meditation anyways, to sort of, fill my body with oxygen and to be mindful of my breath, which is what I do first thing in the morning. And then I do more of like a mantra meditation in the middle of the day. And that's sort of like a reset to like get me back to how I was performing at the beginning of the day, basically.
Lovely. Yeah, that's it. A reset. That's a really good explanation for it. I graduated as a mindfulness and meditation teacher a few years ago, and it's something that I teach all of my clients, that it's people at the very beginning of their meditation journey, it's a real struggle. And what I encourage people is just to keep at it. It's the compounding effect. But what you want to do is you want to turn it into something really that you resonate with fun. Because if you feel it as a challenge and it's a burden, then sometimes it makes it, as with anything that's a burden, you don't really want to do it. But like when you say there, when you've got the word reset or when you've got the word enjoyment, when these words come into your dictionary, it suddenly just makes it a much more appealing exercise to do. And it always makes me laugh because I say this at the beginning of all my talks. I'm like, you guys think of meditation as this holy grail, and that I say you don't, like monks, exactly. Yeah. Like it doesn't the monks do it. And my friend has just done a Vipassana actually over in Australia, and he was meditating for 8 to 10 hours a day. But I mean, you guys don't need to do that. And it makes it, I'm like, people have this envisage of like standing on the side of a cliff with their eyes closed, with the sun beaming down on them, and it's like, no, you can do it on the train. Like you said, you do it, in the middle of the day. So do it in your office. People have this idea that it has to be super special, but just sit there with your eyes closed and you're off. So, that's where I connect with M for mindset. And I feel that it should be a staple for everybody to have a good mind is definitely meditation.
Excellent. Well, we like stories on the Carnivore Entrepreneur Show. So you mentioned about you worked in Dubai. You obviously had a job before you became an entrepreneur. What made you, I guess, become an entrepreneur initially, and then transition into this mindful landlord? Like, because obviously it's been probably quite a journey for you. What's the story? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I moved to Dubai in 2008, and I worked in property. Then I got the opportunity to come over and quite spontaneously left London after a friend of mine who was working in Dubai making really good money at the time. I was like, this is for me. This I like.
So you were like an early adopter for Dubai, weren't you?
Yeah, when literally the roads were changing every day, the Burj Khalifa was still getting built. People were like playing cricket at the bottom of the Burj Khalifa. I used to have a TomTom, the thing that like a bit like the sat nav.
Yeah.
I bought the first week, stopped using it after a week because the roads changed every day. There was no point using it.
Love that.
But it was the good old days, Grant. Nothing was shiny. Nothing was like super new. The roads were like mostly deserty roads. And it was just a real time to be alive over there because it was the real cowboy era. But I got into property there and just had this opportunity to, working with really like high-end clients and understanding about what the property world could do. And a few of my friends owned real estate companies. And I even got the opportunity to go and start a real estate company with a friend of mine. And it was an exciting journey because it was this little glimpse into what property could do for you in terms of the passive income if a system was created. And after reading the 4-Hour Work Week when I was over there, I just became obsessed with systems. That was the real thing. I was like, okay, so if I can piece together and build a system, build a blueprint could this allow me to live my life, which would allow me to be, I'll use the words a property entrepreneur, which you know well, which is instead of working in the business, working on the business.
Correct.
So when I joined Property Entrepreneur, this was really the right alignment for me, which I'll come on to a bit later. But when I was in Dubai, I had an interest in coffee shops and restaurants, and I was working within another business, which was the food distribution business. And there, when we were sourcing the meat, I was meeting a lot of entrepreneurs in cafes who were sourcing the products that we were using. But when I was there, I was finding that it was a great industry, the F&B industry, but in Dubai, it was a very short turnover because people would set up a cafe, set up a restaurant, and it would take a long time to get there. And what would happen is if very quickly the competition was so high, they would go out of business. So I was observing from the outside, and I got these opportunities when I was in Dubai to understand how businesses started from the very beginning, but also their life cycle and how they finished. And after this, I then got the opportunity, as I said, to go and work for Weber. And Weber was interesting because it was a corporate world. And I'd never worked in the corporate world before. And I worked with them for 5 years, setting up the business over across the Middle East, going to different countries, meeting different suppliers, and growing a brand like Weber had a lot of weight behind it because people knew it. And the Arabs love anything that's related to America. And so because of this, they also are massively passionate about cooking. What do they cook? They cook meats. They cook salad. They make salads. So again, there is this journey of following this meat, diet that even back then, which were the Bedouins, what they were doing is they would live in these beautiful places, but just cook on really basic barbecues. So it really had this disconnect between wealth and health. Disconnect of wealth and the food that they ate, because they didn't need to have anything that was too elaborate. They were, again, just cooking meat. And it was interesting. I had a friend of mine who we went into business together, and you're going to laugh at this is really where the journey started. We were in a pub one day and we were trying to figure out why the queue was so long. The queue was taking us ages to get served. And so we were like, right, why is this happening? Every bar, every club that you go to was always really busy. The queues were really long. So after a few beers, we got our creative minds going, and we ended up going back home and researching how to solve queues in bars. And it came up with self-serve beer machines.
Oh, okay.
Self-serve beer machines. It was like, what, in the Middle East? Really? And so my friend, and this is where the entrepreneur really started in me, because I'd followed these journeys of these new startups and I watched other people doing this. But again, going back to the systems, the 4-hour work week, I was like, right, if I was working in a restaurant or in a coffee shop, it's going to take up a lot of my time. But if I can build something that's systemized, okay, then I can be at home and it's going to be working for me. So my friend at the time, and he was my business partner back then, and we made a very big decision. We bought 2 of these beer machines from America, shipped them over from America on a boat, didn't have a contract with anybody, just completely novices. And we were like, we're going to make it work. And we just had complete will and determination. And at the same time as working full time, we were in the background building this brand that was eventually going to partner with Heineken. And so we bought these beer machines over, got them wrapped in Heineken. And we did a partnership with Heineken in the Middle East for the Rugby World Cup back then, which was in the UK. And we ended up renting it to Heineken. And these machines were on a rental basis. And so we just created our first system. And I was like, this is amazing. Wow. Okay. So I'm managing to, there was a lot of hard work and effort that went into this. I'm really underselling about the time that this took, but it was like, okay, this is really exciting. So what we then started doing is we started taking on more products and we started selling those into other locations. But what we realized is that it was a lot harder than what we thought it was going to be.
It always is.
Always is. Oh my goodness. We were juggling full-time jobs and we were trying to do these businesses on the side. And in Dubai back then, you weren't supposed to really do that. And so we were just finding it a real challenge to try and make this work. And so I actually then made a decision that I really, really loved this entrepreneurial life. I wanted to turn it into something, but making it work in Dubai was hard because the cost of living was really expensive. And so if you were to quit your job, which I would needed to do in Weber, to focus full time on this, the income that we had from this was not consistent enough for me to do that. And so I actually made a big decision. We ended up closing the business. It was mutually between the two of us. And I decided to move back to the UK to go and follow my dreams and passion, because the entrepreneur side of me in Dubai was very hard to get started. But I knew that if I moved back to the UK, I was going to go around to have that opportunity. And that is when I then, you're going to laugh, I then read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these different things started to align, and every entrepreneur has read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, this is the start for me if I move back to the UK and become an entrepreneur.
Excellent. And the rest is history, right?
And the rest is history. Yeah. And it's as well as my entrepreneurial journey then, also the mindset journey also started at the same time then, because I went through a very strange experience with a friend of mine who was, I know the word now, but I didn't know it back then. He was a narcissist.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever
Okay.
experienced
Very
that?
high self-worth.
Very high self-worth. Yeah. And it was, such a bizarre, like, I don't know, well, illness is what some people call it. And I was back, I had a really good group of friends, but in Dubai, it's very transient. And so because of the transient lifestyle, a lot of my really good friends, they left Dubai, went to Australia, I went to Thailand, and I then met another group of guys who are through my gym, my CrossFit gym, you know, and that again connects to mindset, connects to meat, because I don't know if you've ever done CrossFit. It is the most addictive exercise and it's very competitive. So it works really well with my nature. And I met this guy who was there, who was part of our friends group, and I had this really weird like friendship with him. And basically he was my best friend one day and he was my worst enemy the next day. And this is the classic traits of a narcissist. He was pushing my buttons, bullying me, as I would put it, but also being my best mate. So it just completely pickled my mind. And I didn't really understand it, Grant. And I was at the beginning of my kind of like entrepreneur journey there. So I was like being quite vulnerable in terms of the decisions that I was making. And, you know, it was, shall I leave? Shall I go? And all these things were happening to me emotionally as well with this guy. And a friend of mine who is a therapist, he is yay older than me, a guy called Darren, an absolute fantastic man. He changed my life in terms of mindset because he introduced me to ways to learn how to manage, a narcissist. But back then I used to struggle quite a lot with anxiety. And I think the anxiety came from uncertainty, because I wasn't exactly sure where I was going. I had these ideas and I had these visions, but I just didn't know how to articulate them. And one day, my friend Darren, after a particularly big argument with my friends, he said the best way to quieten, should I say, a narcissist or quieten someone who is a bully is to agree with them.
Yeah.
Wow. And I was like, what do you mean? And he showed me this picture, and it was this lovely picture. It was a cartoon. And again, this goes into Buddhism here, like these two Buddhas sitting together, both wearing these gis, you know, the outfits that they wear. One of them had the traditional, orange gi. And the other guy had this really big, colourful gi. And the guy wearing the orange gi was like, oh, mate, you're wearing that colourful gi. That looks ridiculous. Why are you wearing that? And the other guy wearing the colourful gi just turns to him, and it's all in speech bubbles. And he says, thank you. And suddenly the power from the guy who was taking the mickey, trying to provoke this guy, was completely removed. And it was like, wow. He showed me this picture and he said, Matt, go and speak to Luke and say exactly this. And I remember it as clear as day. I was in the pub with this guy, Luke, and we had a few girls around, and that was his time that he used to try and humiliate me. And he was taking the piss out of something or taking the mickey out of me. I turned around to him and I went, "Thanks, Luke. Never seen anything like it. It was amazing." Literally, he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, look, thanks. Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, I agree with you." And suddenly all that power that he had that was able to, poke me, jab me, just really frustrate me was gone.
Yeah.
And literally overnight, like that, he disappeared. Like, because he was no longer the funny guy, because he was always able to bully and poke and prod people. And so because of that, suddenly he was powerless. And within a few weeks, or a bit longer, a few months, he was out of our friendship circle. And I was like, wow. And this is the power of understanding the mind. And I'd never learnt these strategies or techniques or tips before. And Darren, this guy who is kind of like my mentor, I see him every year that I go over to Dubai. He then went on to teach me so many different things about building your confidence, reducing anxiety, and understanding your mind. And this is really what started my journey to get me to where I am now, which is, again, everything for me is now about being mindful. Hence the name of my company, hence the way I talk, how I look after myself. And going back to what you mentioned at the beginning of this call, why mindset's so important, because it leaks and travels into money. It travels into into meat. So many different aspects of your life is all connected to do with how strong your mindset is.
Interesting. What a powerful story. Thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting, the thing that people want. People want power, right? And a lot of people think that they get power by controlling other people. And when they can't control other people, they lose that power. But what they don't realize is that true power is being able to control yourself. And that's why recently, like I've been writing this in my book every single day. It's like a new affirmation for me, which is, I am calm, I am conscious, and I am in control. So lovely. It basically is my like 3 C's, which I feel like if I can embody calmness, embody consciousness, and embody control within myself, that I'll have true power. And it's not power over anyone, it's power over myself, which is true power, because it means that you will get everything that you're supposed to get out of life.
Great words, definitely.
An immensely powerful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's dive in a little bit to the 3 pillars. And you said something about like having a healthy mind filters into other areas of your life. And what I believe, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying. What I believe is that the 3 pillars, body, mind, and bank account, they all feed into each other in one way, shape, or form. So like, yes, everything starts with a thought. So therefore it all starts in your mind, right? But you can make your mind better by having a healthy body. You can even make your body and your mind better by having a healthy bank account, because if you have a stressful bank account, right, that can impact your mind, right? And also it can impact your body, because you gain bad habits, you get stressed, you junk food, you drink alcohol, whatever that might be. So I fundamentally believe, and this is why the thing is in a circle, is because I believe that they all feed into each other and they all support each other in one way, shape, or form. So starting with the body, you mentioned to me that you've been in the gym for a very long time, and you've got this connection with meat and whole foods and eating properly. What are your sort of routines when it comes to your personal routines when it comes to exercise and eating healthy?
Sure. So it's really been a journey for me, and I'm always educating myself on health and in fitness. But I started in the gym when I was 13. I'd go during school lunch breaks. Nice and early. Yeah, I don't really remember why I did it. Excuse me. But I loved it. And I can just remember going in and just doing the main muscle groups, but using the machines. I never used to use the weights. Then I got to uni, and then I would always do a lot of stretching first, and then I would go and use the machine, still not using. And I don't know where the stretching thing came from. It was strange, but I've played rugby nearly all my life, and I realize now the power of stretching, because I have been riddled with problems with hamstrings and groins and everything always. Yeah. And I know if I look back now, my goodness, I wish I'd have emphasized more time on stretching to help me rid of those injuries. But over the last few years, I've actually spent a lot more time understanding myself, because I, for as long as I can remember, always thought that you can out-train a bad diet.
That is the biggest myth out there.
Yeah, and I was never educated on it. I used to play, I'd run, I'd swim, I'd cycle, do CrossFit, I would do everything. I used to be, still am in really good shape. But what I used to have was a belly. Oh my goodness. And even one of my friends, he used to call me Belly. That was my nickname. I used to have the Peter Andre body. So above the water, it's all in good shape. And then I just used to have this kind of keg that was here. Pot belly, yeah. And a few years ago, I did an Ironman. And when I was training, before I was training for it, I was the fittest I've ever been. But the thing was, I just couldn't get rid of this belly. And this is 3 years ago, yeah. And I eventually went to a nutritionist. And my diet has always been okay. It hasn't been amazing. But like I say, I just always used to think I could out-train a diet. And I've always been in the gym. And like I say, every sport I do, swimming, cycling, running, you name it, I do it. And it was funny. I went to see this amazing woman, and we sat down, and she said, right, Matt, tell me what you do. I'm like, I'm training 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, okay, all right, well, let's have a look. Let's do a food diary. And I was like, okay, a food diary sounds good. So we did a food diary for 2 weeks. And oh my goodness. I brought it back to her and I showed it to her. She's like, cheat meal. Yeah, cheat meal. Okay, so you had some cookies here. And she's like, Matt, what are you're telling me that you're eating well and you're not eating really badly, but if you're telling me you want to lose weight, you're pushing yourself way over the 2,500 calories every day, but you just don't realize it because you're doing small little increments. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And she said, look, it's not rocket science. Yeah, you got to eat less than 2,500 calories when you lose weight. So let's cut out your calories that you're not supposed to eat, and let's see what happens. What happened? I lost the weight.
There you
I
go.
was like, really? Was it that easy? And she's like, yeah. But because also what the thing was that I was exercising really high. So my energy levels were really, was burning lots of energy, but then I was also eating even more. So it was this kind of strange equilibrium where I was like, actually, to lose the weight, you're using more energy, but you're eating more. So you're not, I always used to think that you burn more calories when you're exercising compared to not eating. Mm-hmm. And that is also not true. Yeah. So after that, I got a real eye opener into understanding about how I should eat. But that wasn't the end of it. It was then actually, I kind of slipped off the wagon a little bit and I got injured and I started eating and I was back on it. And I do eat a lot. I do eat a lot of big portions. And I was training for a high rocks and I had a really, really great high rocks. But the night before I was really ill because I ate too much food.
Wow.
And so again, it started this journey again. Okay, right. You understand it. You've got to cut out these calories to make sure you're maintaining a good weight. Then afterwards, I was eating to such excess. I was like, right, why do I eat so much during the day in these meals? So I then started researching it again. And that's when I found intermittent fasting. Excellent. So I was like, okay, I understand the concept of it. But then I tried it this year. I did it for 3 months and it was okay. I did lose, I stayed in shape, but it just wasn't suitable for me because sometimes I was hungry. Sometimes I wasn't. So what I've just realized, and this was the real eye opener, and I'll go back to after I finish this about explaining about my exercise routine. But for me, it's about, I don't need to have 3 meals a day. I was obsessed, or part of the routine that everyone tells you, you've got to have breakfast, all these. And it's like, it's absolute rubbish. Eat when you're hungry. Don't eat for the sake of it. So most days now I just have 2 meals, but it might be breakfast and lunch, maybe not dinner, but it might be lunch and dinner. Not always having 3. Sometimes I even have just 1. It's like, if I'm not that hungry, I just don't eat. And this is the real cheat code. And this is what everybody needs to realize, because it's like, you don't need to have all of these meals. It's just your mind telling you. You have to, again, use your mindset to control yourself, to learn to have not automatically think you need to eat them. And when it is the cheat code that everyone needs to know. Once you crack that, suddenly it's like, okay, I can control what? Because I used to need to go to the gym every day, 6 days a week. Now I don't need to. I've just been in France for a week, eating cheese, meat, everything, having the best time ever. But I didn't go to the gym once, didn't have the chance to. But before I would have been really paranoid that, oh my God, I'm going to put on loads of weight. But now I don't, because I now know that I can regulate my body by just managing the amount of food that I put into it. It's amazing. I'm 41 years old now. I wish I'd have known this when I was a lot younger, because it would have changed my life in so many ways. I can't imagine what shape I would be in now if I'd have learned that when I was a lot younger.
Yeah. I think we all go through things in our younger lives which actually, in hindsight, give us experiences that we would have never had, right?
Sure. Sure.
And that's what I believe. I went through a lot of stuff when I was younger, and having those experiences, yes, it meant that it extended my ability to be further away from where I want to be right now, but also it gave me things that, like as an example, my wife Kay, she's never smoked, never done drugs, never, had like a massive friends network where they go out partying all the time. So she hasn't had those experiences that I've had. And I think that's giving me like a social connection and ability to communicate with people that I never would have right now if I didn't do that.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's like our blaze energy.
Yeah, as well as, but maybe I made myself into a blaze by having that network. You're a product of your environment, right?
Yeah.
There's probably some natural stuff about me, but I think you are a product of your environment, and I probably grew up wanting to be that blaze energy.
Yeah.
So it's great nutrition advice. I think cutting down the amount of meals that you have is a great way to control what you're taking in. And as long as in those meals, you're consuming things that are for energy as opposed to comfort, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're consuming them for energy as opposed to comfort, you won't need to eat. Like I could eat one massive meal that's like 1,500, 2,000 calories in that one meal, loads of meat, loads of veg, loads of whole foods, no shit like bread, pasta, processed meats, all that sort of stuff, and just eat a fucking shitload of it, right? And sorry for the swearing, guys, but that will satiate me for hours. Right. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, shove a load of bread and pasta and, salami and chorizo and cream and all that stuff that's processed and sugar, right? Sugar's the worst, right? And consume all that, be really comforted, but then an hour or two later, they're hungry again.
Yeah.
So that's great. Love the nutrition stuff. So you mentioned Ironman and the fact that you do CrossFit. So what's your sort of exercise routine now as an entrepreneur to sort of squeeze it all in now?
Yeah, the Ironman was a few years ago, and that took over my life. So for 6 months.
An entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to do the Ironman, you've got to forget about being an entrepreneur for a little bit, right?
That is very true. It is really effort put in equals results. And I basically read a book. There was a book called Be Iron Fit. Absolutely incredible. And it says you can train to be an Ironman, or you can run an Ironman race in 6 months if you follow these steps. Train 6 days a week, and it is so straightforward. It gives you all the information that you need. And I was in Nice this weekend, and I saw a big billboard on the street, Nice Ironman 2026. So I think I'm going to sign up and do another one next year. But again, it comes down to the discipline. I was getting up really early to make sure I could get my swim in. I was cycling at the weekends. I was running late at night. I would run from work, run back from work, all these different things to build up and find out the times that I could actually get the training in. But now it's very different. Now that I train, I go back to the old school, which is using the free weights. Excellent. So I do, it is what they teach you is, it's not wrong. High intensity, 1 session a week. But then other than that, I do lift heavy weights, and I do 1 back session, 1 leg session, 1 chest session. And then I run, and then I do a circuit training, kind of like CrossFit class. But just doing the strong weights just builds my strength and makes me feel like invincible. It's the case of you think about these poor elderly people that are very frail and very, weak. You trip over, and that's just the fear, isn't it? So many people, when they're old, they fall over and they break something. But you see now, and you get inspired by looking on Instagram and seeing elderly people who are still in the gym. And that is to be the message for people, eat clean, go to the gym, lift big weights, meditate, and you'll survive longer. It's a little bit off context, but I have to share it before I forget it. There was an amazing podcast at the moment by Simon Sinek with Stephen Bartlett, and they're talking about mindset. They're talking about, that guy. I've not listened. I've already got his book on order. I can't wait.
I love Simon Sinek. He's one of my, I definitely look up to him. I've got a course booked with one of his online courses. But yeah, I haven't done it yet. But I booked it, and I'm going to do it. So love Simon Sinek.
He's just energy about the way he's just so fresh and direct. And he was saying people plan more for the car they want to buy or the Christmas dinner that they're going to make, rather than they plan their life or they plan their mindset. And it's just like, if so many people put more time and effort into knowing their body and looking after themselves, as we've been talking about before, just the knock-on effect of just leading you to success is so surprising to hear when people do that. But then, at the same time, I say that, everybody's circumstances are different. You've got multiple kids, it's about people's time and output and availability of time. I'm talking very much here, my lifestyle is very different. I'm a single guy. I don't have any kids, so I have more time. But I've been away now with some very good friends of mine for the weekend. I was like the adopted nanny because they were all there with their kids, and I got to see a real insight into, managing kids and managing work and, not being the entrepreneur, managing the 9 to 5. So I can understand that everybody's circumstances are different. They can't apply the same time to it that other people can. But the whole point about this, what we're talking about here and what you're giving this great message about, is just education. If you understood about these small things that you can do in your life, you don't need to be in a gym for an hour. You can go for 20 minutes, or you can do your exercise at home. Like I used to do some social media posts, which was about teaching people to train for 20 minutes in their house. And that's all they need to do every day. Some just movements, just getting out and about. You've got a baby, put it in a stroller, get outside the house, do some exercises while you've got the baby on the floor in front of you. It's like trying to figure these things out, but be open-minded. That's also the other thing that I find with people. And that's what I coach people, is about reframing their mindset on these traits that they have. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. Well, why can't you? Let's reframe that and have a look where that thought came from. Let's try and reframe it so that you can be open-minded to start taking care of yourself. And it's the compounding effect of 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes eating this, 10 minutes here, turns you into that, carnivore entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, and that's absolutely what my Healthy Body book is all about. It's about showing entrepreneurs that you don't need a lot of time to have a healthy body. You just need to make different choices, right?
Yeah.
Choose to eat different things. Choose to spend half an hour of your day on movement or strength or flexibility or something. You said that you feel like stronger and powerful when you're at the gym and lifting weights. I look at it as like you're building armor on your body,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
So like it's like you're wearing a coat of armor. When you're stronger, you can fall over and it not be a problem, right? And
sure.
That's why as we get older and we lose muscle and our bones become more brittle, falling over can be a death sentence, and that's honestly serious. Like, I think my great grandmother, just reflecting on a story, my great grandmother, one of her last things that sort of was the end of her life was she fell over, and a couple of weeks later she was gone. And maybe if she was stronger, that wouldn't have happened as it did. And everyone's got a sell by date. I get that, right? And everyone's sell by date might be different to each other's person, but I do believe that that's built by your habits and how you live your life, because there's this thing called the law of use. And if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's why when people retire, I hate that word. I hate the word retire, because retire means I'm coming to the end, right? I don't want to ever come to the end, so I'm never going to retire. But when people say retire, what that means is that they start shutting down. And their brain stops thinking as much as it used to. And that's how people get dementia, right? That's why Warren Buffett is still sharp as a tack. And he's like 90 odd years old or whatever he is at the moment. That is why he's that level. And why he hasn't lost his mind. And that's why people do get dementia, because they shut down and they don't think as much as they used to when they were in a job or running a business or pushing towards a mission, So absolutely agree with everything you're saying. Strength is one of the fundamental pillars to longevity. And you can do that by continuing to move, lifting heavy weights, and eating whole foods. And that's, and I'm glad that you picked up on all of that stuff. So just skipping forward from healthy body to the other pillar, healthy mind. We have talked a lot about that, before, but so your 14 days of focus, that was something that really sort of, I've been watching a lot of online. And it might be a really good talking point for anyone that wants to, go to the next level in terms of how they think and how they approach their day. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we have talked a little bit about mindset in general, meditation, and I think that's great for the mind. But what's your 14-day of focus? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, this is my little baby. I started it on the 1st of January this year. Actually inspired after doing 75 hard. I did 75 hard last year, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a challenge. It's called Ironman for the Mind. And it's about completing 8 tasks every day for 75 days in a row. And if you don't complete one of those tasks,
you reset the time, don't you?
Reset again. Oh, my goodness. 75 days in total. I ended up doing it for 116 days.
Wow. What's the 8 things?
So, well, on 75 hard, you have drink 4 liters of water.
Yeah.
You have stick to a diet. So no cheat meals, no alcohol. You have to do 2 lots of 45 minutes exercise. You have to read 10 pages of a non-fiction book. and then you have to take a body photo. So that's 7, actually. That's for 75 hard, there's 7.
Okay.
For 14 days of focus, you do 8.
Okay.
So basically what this does is it just creates the most insane level of discipline that you have to, if you break any of these, like you have to start from 0. I tell you, Grant, 2 weeks before I got to 75, or 2 weeks before I got to 116, I was having nightmares. I would be walking along in my dream and someone would hand me a beer and I'd be like, oh, thanks, mate. And I would drink it and I'd be like, oh my God, no, I've drunk alcohol. I have to start from 0.
You actually had dreams like that?
Nightmares. And I'd wake up being like,
dreams and nightmares.
But what it did, it just taught me just how to be so disciplined and also how to block out the distractions of the world. Because everybody is telling you, have a beer, have a slice of cake, all the external noise that is around you is trying to influence you. And it's like, you just have to disconnect. And it just taught me, I've always enjoyed a good drink, but at the same time, I've also been trying to get off it because most of the time, if I drink, I end up getting very tired and get very sleepy.
Okay.
And so there are other times where I do go and have a really good time, but it's never been a big thing for me, drinking. And after doing this for like nearly 4 months, it completely rewired my brain because I was going out, clubbing, socializing, festivals, you name it, without drinking. And basically, after I completed this, it had such a powerful impact on me that but what it resonated with was that it's not for everybody, but if you want to try it, give it a good go. But then at the same time, I was like, I could try and tier this and change this slightly to be focused more on mindset. Even though it is called the Iron for the Brain by a guy called Andy Frisella, I wanted to introduce meditation because I was like, the 2 things that I love, which is meditation, but also journaling. And I call journaling your own personal therapy. Because what you're doing is when you're journaling, you're writing down what are the thoughts in your mind. And you can ask yourself the questions. Why do I feel like this? What is up with me today? And it's hard because you've got to answer those questions truthfully. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I create 14 days of focus, which was my own version of the 75 hard. And so in that is basically 5 to 10 minutes of meditation, journaling, one form of exercise, no cheat meals, no alcohol, body photo, reading a book, and drinking 4 pints of water. So it's kind of like a watered down version. But I tell you,
though, like, because things sometimes, like the extreme of like 75 hard, be like, oh no, I can't do that. But when you think 14 days, right? Well, once you've done 14 days, can you do 20? Can you do 25? Right? And it's the steps to success, right?
That is exactly, Grant, you hit the nail on the head. So it goes 14 days of focus, 30 days of mindset, 60 days of iron mind, and then the final one, which is the full one, which is 90 days of enlightenment. And it just gives you these building blocks, and I've created an app for it and everything, and And it was, but what this, it was just to try and get people to start their own journey. But like you say, that's not as difficult as 75 hard. But I had this really surprising reaction from someone. A friend of mine, bless him, is an absolute legend. He is an addict, and he has been on this journey for many years, trying to figure out, how to get himself away from the attractions of addiction. And I spoke to him about this, and introduced him to it, and he started it because exactly what you said there. He was like, okay, I can start at 14 days, because the hardest thing about being an addict is you've got to take it one day at a time. Yeah. You can't look at making that massive decision to be, clean forever. And so he loved the idea of starting with 14 days. Perfect. Then 30 days, then 60 days and 90 days. But what it did, it gave structure. So it's a bit like what the 12-step program gives people, structure to help them get from one day to another. And you have your accountability buddy. And he started on this program, and, he started it. he didn't complete it, unfortunately, but he understands the framework of it. And so what this framework does, it just has got so many different pillars to it to help people, whether is it addiction? Yes. But is it trying to start meditation? Is it trying to curb your diet? Is it trying to do exercise? Doing 45 minutes of exercise every day.
Yeah.
And this was the real power behind all of this, because it was suddenly introducing 10 minutes of reading a day, or 10 pages, for people that don't read a non-fiction book, which then helps you develop entrepreneurial ideas. It gets you to understand about the world of business. Or are you learning about biographies or autobiographies? So instead of reading fiction, you're reading autobiographies or self-development books.
Yeah.
So each layer of this 14 days of focus is ingrained to helping you build habits to become
Absolutely.
a stronger.
That's what I was thinking
person.
in my mind. It's habit stacking at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a great journey. It's ticking along in the background, aside from the Mindful Landlord and the other businesses that I've got. But I really believe that when I've got the right momentum and I've got the right people on board for this, it could become really something. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah. Well, anyone that wants to get in touch with you, Matt's details will be in the show notes. So feel free to get in touch. And I'm sure he'll say at the end how to contact him about the 14 days of focus. So yeah, great. Oh, I love the mindset stuff. So bank account, we're all in this for the money. No, not really. We're all in this for balance. Do you know what? I believe that the money gives you the freedom. Money gives you the freedom to be able to work on your body and work on your mind in the way that you want to work on it. Because if you don't have that, like you said before, passive income, right? Your mind is like just focused on getting money, right? Because we need to survive, don't we? We all need homes. We all need food. We all need, things to do. So bank account, what is your long-term strategy with having a healthy bank account? Like you said, you got into the property entrepreneur, so you're obviously into property. Now you started the Mindful Landlord. Obviously, I think the Mindful Landlord is more of a passion thing at the moment, whereas your property stuff is more your bread and butter, isn't it? So what's your strategy, long-term strategy for wealth, essentially?
Yeah, sure. Spend less than you earn. That's got to be
tip number one. Don't spend more than you earn, so you have some left over.
And that's it. Finished. That's all I got. No, it's so actually, So to clarify, the Mindful Landlord is my property development business, and then my other business is called You Got This, and that is the coaching, that is the mindset,
okay, cool.
And that's where that comes under 14 days of focus, mindful coaching with Matt. All of those things comes under You Got This.
Okay.
So
cool.
the Mindful Landlord my property journey started off with a single let, which I bought many years ago. I still have. But I rented it to a person that was on benefit, so DSS tenant. And I had built a relationship with this gentleman, and he's been in there for over 15 years. And so my mum and I have got quite a connection to do with the homeless, different charities. She works in a day centre, and always part of our family has always been about giving back. And what I've realised over the years, I've started other businesses. I started a rent-to-rent business, which was all about managing landlords, HMOs, and we were working with the professional tenants. But when I started building my portfolio years ago, I then went back to working with, say, for example, Manchester Council, Durham Council, and partnering with them to work with tenants who were vulnerable tenants. And this is basically the main ethos or the main mission of the Mindful Landlord is to give back to the community. So there's always been this underlying thought in my mind about working in property, but also renting them to tenants that need them, vulnerable tenants. So that's where the idea of the Mindful Landlord came from, because previously the other properties that I'd been buying beforehand, we partnered with different councils and we were homing the vulnerable. And what I did was after Theresa May was in power, everything turned upside down. The business model that I had was no longer sustainable. So as you know, we're talking about mindset. I'm also a very spiritual person. You meet people at the right time and they're introduced to you. I was at a public speaking event and I met a gentleman who owns and built a school in Bolton for children and adults that are severely handicapped. And he invited me to the place and it was absolutely inspiring. It was this beautiful, beautiful school. And what he created was that outside of the school was this small village. And in the village, there were purpose-built buildings and also your normal standard residential. He owned and rented houses in that community to the students that went to his school. And so they would live there permanently. And the children could walk if they could, or go by wheelchair, and would go to the school every day. And it was, my goodness, it was absolutely inspiring. And so it sent me on this journey of research to look into what is called the supported living market, where you are working with vulnerable tenants of different grades, from the homeless, depending on the support they need, all the way up to people that need 24-hour care.
Right.
So this then taught me to focus the business, what is the Mindful Landlord, on building a portfolio of properties and partnering with the companies that offer this care. Because what it does is it allows these people who sometimes people don't have homes. You know, we work with the homeless, and they allows them to have a home for themselves. And where we're looking to do is in the future is to buy and turn a building actually into a full-time care home for people with severe learning disabilities. And with this, you know, you have the support of the governments, you have the support of institutions. So it is a business in itself. And for me, in, a property world that is, you know, very volatile from day to day, you know, people think that property is very straightforward. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people realize, that they think that getting into property is easy. I've now transitioned the business into, rather than working with professional tenants, we're now focusing on the vulnerable. And it gives us, you know, great appreciation, and also the people that we work with at the same time. And this is where I believe, for me, with my business, this is going to give the sustainability for the cash flow that we need to maintain and grow the business in a very challenging property market that we're in.
Excellent. And how have you systemized it so that you're not working in the business but on the business?
So this is actually it's a great question. It's something that I have done pretty much since I started working in property, which I used to have a lot of embarrassment with, actually. But I now have understood that this is not the case. Is I outsource, Grant, a lot of my work.
Okay.
And the thing was I live in London and I invest, the business is mainly in Manchester and in Durham. I am never going to be a professional in Durham and Manchester to the extent that I want. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And so what I do is I have partnered with people who are property specialists, who are builders, who are the right power team in these two cities. And so by doing this, it allows me to have the eyes and the ears on the ground in both of these areas to allow the business to grow, to be managed, and also to be sustained if there is an issue. Because where I travel is going to take me 5 hours to get to Manchester. It's going to take me even longer to get into Durham. So that is number one. But then also is working or outsourcing the day-to-day property management. I have a small team and basically allowed me to outsource these roles of property management, maintenance to my team. And so it's taken me a lot of time at the front end, which is creating processes, creating manuals, creating documents that I now share with my team. And between us, all of us, we all work in harmony together to allow me, I still work on the business, but a lot of it is outsourced.
Okay. Cool. So basically get a team of specialists around you that know what they're doing on their specific area better than you do. And you can then think about strategy and making decisions.
That's exactly it. Work and building the relationships with the providers. That's the key. That's me on the ground, talking about the brand, sharing the brand and growing it. Whereas I'm then confident with my team in the background that everything else is managed because they have a process that they follow.
Excellent. So you've got your wealth sorted out because you've owned these buildings, and then you have your cash flow sorted out because you're putting people in there with a consistent flow of paying you each month and making a profit, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's how this all started, 10 years ago when I read 4-Hour Work Week. And, I said Simon Zucci there. No, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that is, that's what they teach you. And I just literally took the implementation of what they've got. And then the next bit is, you got this, creating a system and a process for helping coach people with the mindset and everything that we've been talking about on this call.
Excellent. So we're sort of near the end. I've got some quick fire questions for you. I just realised I didn't tell you what these quick fire questions were, I don't think.
Keep me on.
So I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. So what's your favourite book?
Oh, good question.
You've mentioned a couple, but are they your favourites?
No. Yeah. Okay. Well, you've always got to take the thing that comes to your mind. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey's Green Light.
Amazing book. Oh man, I read that book and it was phenomenal. Yeah. I haven't read it again. I actually might read it again because you said that. It just reminded me of it.
So even better, listen to it. Get it on.
Sorry. Yeah, I've got it on Audible.
Yeah, I've listened to it 3 times. It is just, it lives an inspiring life.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Oh, great one. I've not had that one before, so that's good. So next question, how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? Oh, God, that's deep. Okay, good. I don't know. Again, I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind. It's just being a good guy, being a good listener. Go back to the mindset, I'm always there just to help people, basically.
Excellent. Like it. And I think, if we're decent human beings, like most people would want to be remembered like that, wouldn't they? Yeah. He was a good guy, and I think that's an absolutely admirable thing to be remembered for. And simple as well. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
So second to last question. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice today, what would that one thing be?
If I could leave the listeners one piece of advice, what would that be? Trust in yourself. Like, my biggest challenge for me is always myself. I always get in my own way. But over the last few years, I'm learning to trust in myself and, what I want. And that's it. And I think sometimes with life, especially now, there is so much content that's out there. There is so many things to take in and absorb and different things. And you'll listen to something and you go, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm going to do this. What we're actually doing is we're forgetting about what is actually in here, our own thoughts.
Yeah. And
it's just like, trust in yourself. You can do it. You got this is the name of my business. You got this. And try and, as much as it's great to have a community and friends and mentors and everything like that, just trust in yourself. Because, you're a very unique person. You're the only one in the world to do it. So, just trust in yourself.
Yeah, you got this. Not anyone else. It's you that's got this, not anyone else. And I think that's got a lot of power to it, 100%. And keep your promises to yourself as well. If you say you're going to do something, go and bloody do it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Just you're the commander of your ship, is what I say.
Yeah.
You know.
Excellent. Cool. So finally, where can people find you or connect with you or do the 14 days of focus? Yeah, let us know, and we'll put this in the show notes as well, so you don't have to remember it.
Lovely. Yeah, perfect. That's great. Thank you very much, Grant. So 14 Days of Focus is my Instagram page, or The Mindful Landlord is my other page. And at the moment, also, I have just actually started a new program, which is based on, all the journey that I've been on, which is called the Resilience Blueprint. And it helping people become more resilient, to do with building solid foundations. And so I got 5 free spaces for people to connect with me. So if you follow me at The Mindful Landlord and drop me a message, I'll be able to get you guys on board. And it's just the opportunity just to understand all the things we've been basically talking about here. But if you're ready to start your journey, the key things that you need to have in place to get you started. If you just want to chat, reach out to 14 Days of Focus, and we can talk you all the way through the program and get you started on it, totally free of charge, as soon as you're ready.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that. It's been a great conversation with some amazing stories, actually. Love a show that's got stories on it, because it really resonates, and it shows the power of how people learn as well, which I think is really important, because, if we can learn off of other people's mistakes or things that they've experienced in their life, then we skip the gears a little bit. Not about skipping the gears, but it's about, learning from other people, which is great. So thank you for joining me, Matt, and thank you for everything that you've shared. And looking forward to seeing how your journey goes.
Thank you, Grant. That was really, really great. And you're doing some fantastic work, and really appreciate it for having me on.
Thank you very much. Speak to you all soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You are a carnivore entrepreneur. Live life how it was supposed to be lived, on your terms, with strength, energy, and purpose. I'll see you on the next episode.